Hi guys, right now I'm reading Art of War, and since reading's a pain, I'm going to do my best to summarize it for you. To begin, The Art of War is one of the most influential treatises on strategy and tactics ever written, and at the time was actually the definitive work on the subject. But a history lesson's kind of boring, so instead I'm going to recount one of the most famous stories that really exemplify who Sun Tzu was. A king who read Art of War was curious to test Sun Tzu. He wanted to see if the tactics for commanding an army could also apply to women. Sun Tzu was amicable, and so he was given 180 concubines to work with. He made 2 companies, placing the king's favorite concubines at the head of each. He explained to them some basic maneuvers, and after they assented and understood what he wanted of them, he began to drill them. Or attempt to, anyway. The concubines were undisciplined and had no interest in following orders. Blaming himself publicly, stating that if the soldiers do not follow orders, then it is the fault of the general for not being clear or direct, he ran them through drills again. And still, they had no interest in following orders. Now he stated that if the general is clear and his orders are understood, and yet the soldiers still disobey, then it is the officer's fault. So saying, he ordered the officers, in this case the 2 concubines, beheaded. The king begged of him not to, saying his point was made. But Sun Tzu could not accept these orders and beheaded the concubines anyway, after which he instated the next 2 concubines as the head of each company. Suddenly, surprisingly enough, the girls moved with perfect discipline, and the king, seeing Sun Tzu's dedication and effective methods, instated him as a general. Now that you have an idea of who Sun Tzu was as a person, let us briefly summarize what his book talks about. The first 3 chapters are dedicated to waging war, beginning with planning and waging war, and strategic attacking. The next 4 chapters deal with the military itself, discussing how to use one's forces, how to properly command one's forces, identifying weaknesses and strengths in the general and the forces, and finally, how to properly maneuver forces to engage with the enemy. Chapter 8 deals specifically with proper tactics, like when to attack, when not to attack, how to deal with disadvantages, and, importantly enough, what makes a bad general. Chapter 9 deals with the difficulties in moving an army. Keep in mind at the time that a baggage train and the army pretty much all moved on foot or wagon. This is dealing with keeping one's army happy, and importantly, not pointlessly putting them in harm's way. Chapter 10 deals with the different types of terrain and the various advantages and disadvantages of each. Chapter 11 describes the most likely situations one finds oneself in and actually outlines how to deal with them effectively. Chapter 12 is titled Attack by Fire, a personal favorite, and while seemingly simple, actually outlines effectively how to use fire in such a way to inflict maximum damage on the enemy while incurring minimum risk for your own army. The last chapter deals with spies, and is my favorite, as he states that not using spies is one of the worst things a general can do. Not outlaying the whatever innocuous amount of money to hire spies, using them either ones from within the enemy's camp or your own, can really turn the tide of war. And refusing to outlay this small amount when war is truly one of the most expensive things a country can outlay is the height of stupidity. With that, I conclude my introduction to Art of War, and look forward to hearing about Wealth of Nations.